Welcome to FMA Talk Live. I am Datu Tim, and this is my wonderful co-host.
Hey, PG Ties here, everyone. Oh, welcome.
Hope everyone is doing well out there.
Yeah.
Little last minute announcement. Didn't get it up as early as I liked. Wasn't sure about the topic till last minute, and I was on the left coast.
That's right. And you want to go to get into that, or you want to start off with other things?
Sure. So I was invited to Dave Kovar's ProMac conference, Rising Tides. Nice name. We talk about that a lot, don't we?
Right.
So I've taught at a couple of his events so far, but this was at the headquarters. So I was really pleased. It was funny. I walked in the door and everyone's like, "Oh, I love your content. I love your content."
Nice.
And they're like, the social media push I've been doing is really had a lot bigger impact than I thought would. And in areas that I really wasn't concerned about initially, I really wasn't thinking that people would be, watching it like this. I mean, it just, and some people back in the training in the 70s, like sat down. We sat on a testing board they already did the testing. So it was the promotion, some demonstrations. I actually was asked to demo as well. And it was a big celebration, and guy sits down next to me. He's been training since the 70s. I'm like, oh, okay. As an adult in the 70s, and he's talking like, hey, I really love your video content. That's pretty cool. I like your swagger. I'm like, oh, so it's really been doing well. And then when I walk through the door, they walk up and they hand me my name tag, and I'm like, and how do you know me? Oh, I follow you on social media. I'm like, okay, great. So it's really been a huge success. And the good thing I've been able to do, and this is probably the most important thing, find a bunch of people out there homes for training. There's a bunch of people out there looking for training around the world. And I've been able to find places literally around the world for them to train. Sweden, throughout the United States and Canada, even in the Philippines, I've helped some people. So I'm, and this is a big, to me, it's all about promoting Filipino martial arts.
Yep.
Hold on one second here.
All right.
Somebody.
Oh, your other co-host.
Yeah. My other co-host is taking out documents from my printer.
So we're not talking Dean then.
No, it's not Dean. Matt Jones is there. There we go.
Hey,
Matt. Yeah, but I mean, so Eric, who should be logging in at the end of the show because that's what he does. I just got him a league in Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm working on someone for Las Vegas. I sent someone Jackie Bradbury's way.
Perfect.
So things are, they're beginning to go well and go well for our people because, I send it to the people I know,
Well, it's hard to send them to people you don't know. So, yeah.
Or send the people that we work with. Right. And that want to be part of the team.
Yep.
Not to be confused with a team. So, but yeah, no, it's doesn't have quite but anyways, getting back to it, it was really cool because a lot of people knew of me, but it was the demo. They all I did was show a Sinwali, but I showed how to do it. So this camp was really cool because everybody there was an instructor or an assistant instructor.
Right.
So I didn't teach material. I taught how to teach material. Really get into it. And then So my session was on the last day, and it was one of the most attended seminars.
Nice. That's pretty good for a last day.
Yeah, and it was rivaling the numbers throughout the whole weekend, including the business track. So the cool thing about the Dave Kovar's is there's a huge emphasis on physical martial arts.
Okay.
So he'll have 2 business tracks and a physical track going on at the same time. So it's really, really, good. Very reminiscent of the Maya Super Show when it's in Vegas, because there's a lot of that going on. And the nice thing here is this event makes personal connections a lot different than all the other events I've been to. And I'm not saying that the others aren't personable, but not like this. It's just a completely different vibe. And this is an event, if there was no schedule conflicts, I would do on a regular basis. Which right there, I just told you there's schedule conflicts.
Right.
So, like I said, an amazing event. It was very good for me on multiple levels. And, it was good for the arts, because now I got people who are, once again, hey, do you know anyone out by me? Sure. Let me look. Let me see what I can find out, of course I gave them my online university information, but same token, a lot of guys are looking for in-person places, training, and I want to help them find that. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about that event. The people were great. Like I said, I did the angles of attack. I got into why we do what we do, because we've changed the order for better learning. I've talked about hitting and hitting through, and how that affects your footwork. We talked about how firearms, for those who are doing concealed carry or open carry, or if it's law enforcement, how a weapon system, even though if it is completely secure and it can't come out, it can still be used as a handle. So we want to keep those weapon systems away from our opponents. I mean, I got to go, and then I did the Hollywood and talked about how, we have to be entertainers at times. And I took a very effective disarm and put a little flash bang on there. And, oh my God. And everyone fell for it. So, because I have the 2 different color sticks, the guy attacks me. I disarm him, but I let my stick going down. And no, it's not the one Bobby Tabuada shows. Because people say, oh, Bobby showed you that. No. I was well-accomplished martial artist long before I met Bobby Tabuada. Bobby was my mentor. He's not my teacher.
Right. And Remy showed us plenty of Hollywood things too.
I was going to say, I had the ultimate teacher out there, in my opinion, Remy Praces, and we learned that stuff long before. Matter of fact, I may have learned those materials long before Bobby came to the States. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I got to do the move. I show them how I disarm them, and I have his stick in my hand, and everyone's looking on the ground thinking that's his stick. Isn't that my pretty stick there? Oh yeah, it is.
There you go. Right.
And I even talked about why we put tape on the sticks, for training, and then how big of a puño and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It really, really was a good. I felt so satisfied as an instructor, because even though I don't get to teach this stuff all the time, it falls on deaf ears.
Right.
There's a lot of people who need it and just don't listen to it. Then there's other people who are just not ready for that lesson. And
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, asking if many of the people there had done much FMA or any.
So in Kovar's system, because they've got their own Kovar martial system,
right?
It's in there. They do a lot of Serrata.
Okay, right. That's right. Now I remember.
And some of the people have done stuff with Apollo Ladra, so they got a PTK iCali blend going on there.
Right.
You know, but you know, between my swagger and I really, I want to talk. I think we need to talk about this as a show in the future. Modern Arnis is probably the most misunderstood art out there. And here's the thing, and I want everyone to think about this. It's a strong system because it was an art for the military. Remy's father taught the guerrillas during World War II to defend their country against the Japanese. He kept it simple, straightforward, and Remy did the same. And I look at all these other systems, and there's a lot of sophistication out there, but they're over sophisticated, and things go in a bad way, I think. And I think that's what we're really, and like to sit there and go, listen, Modern Arnis or Price's family systems, let's say that, was proven during World War II. Okay. And if you want a system for the military, it can't be over sophisticated like a lot of these systems are. It's got to be simple. All right, so let's get caught up here. Okay, yep. Adam, hey, nice talking to you. Yep, cool. I'll be up in Toronto in 2 weeks. I'll be at Bobby Tabata seminar saying hello. Can Tim ask? Sorry. Matt saying much. Okay. Oh, here we go. Daryl Richardson, how we doing?
Hey, Daryl. How you doing? Haven't seen him for a while, but we'll see him here in a couple months.
Yes, we will.
A few months, somewhere in there.
That's going to be rough for me. I might be getting home a day before that event from the Philippines.
Now you can sleep when you're dead.
I think magic is an understood art. Okay, so yeah, I it was so good. It was such a good event. I had such a blast teaching instructors how to teach. You know, I really enjoy that.
It's great because you can really set them up to resonate really well, and then they learn very fast, and also ask questions that help you.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, it was, you know, like you teach your students, but most of my students are not in the teaching role, or if they are, they're teaching little kids. They're not teaching the crowd I teach. And when I got a whole bunch of school owners sitting in front of me and all their staff, I'm like, this is really cool because I can really, hey, this is why we do what we do. Why do we teach the angles of attack this way? Well, all the forehands are odds, all the backhands are even, with the exception of the two center line attacks. Great. You know,
I just went over that with some newer folks.
You know, just high, middle, low, right in order. Forehand, back, everything's taught in a pair. Boom, you know. Been busy. Been busy. Finally, yep, that'll be fun. And then Lex gives a smiley face.
Nice. Hey, Lex.
So, and
see
then
him later this year too.
Yep, Mr. Wolf. So, okay. So there's been a lot of comments on FMA Discussion, our cousin group.
Right.
And comments have been made. One in particular, which I actually voiced about, and I'm planning on following up with that person. And if he happens to be listening, yeah, I definitely want to have a sit down telephone type conversation, because I made some comments about things, and it, as usual, it doesn't come off the way it's intended, you know. And let me I put it right here. Okay. I'm gonna read the comment to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Professor the pros and cons of Modern Arnis.
Yeah.
The main thing for me, The main thing for me is that Remy really didn't care about making things traditional, so it can seem a little confusing as how stuff was taught throughout the years. The groups were always fragmented, which is my point. And after being blessed of having to meet all the first generations, many of the first generations, they all do the same thing but different. If that's really a con. Okay. I didn't like the phrase. First of all, the person wasn't there. I made comments about that. This is to everybody. This is a beef of mine. I want everyone to listen very closely. I talk about Anshan Bakan, and I make it very clear when I talk about him that it comes from the stories from my teacher, Ted Bua. I never trained with Anshan Bakan, but I had the guy that taught for Anshan Bakan. I had another person who was one of the top fighters in the Balintawak group, if not the top fighter underneath Anshan Bakan. That was Remy Pracis. My stories come from him about Anshan. Once again, it's obvious that I didn't train with Anshan because I'm a second gen student of Anshan, not a first gen. My teacher was a first gen. And there's very few first gen people left. Actually, I don't know if there's any.
I was going to ask. Yeah. I don't know as well as you do, but yeah, nothing jumped into my mind.
Okay, as an example, just so we understand, working with the old man doesn't mean you were his student.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference. I would bring my students to Remy all the time. They were still my students. Mm-hmm. Remy promoted them to black belts. They were still my students. They were my RPCs. Professor, these people are ready for black belt. And he would give me the seal of approval if they were ready. He didn't produce them. They're my black belts on his paper. And I'm very specific about my words. But people have been getting sloppy lately. And they say things to make it sound like they were there. If you weren't there, make sure you make a point saying, like, what I heard was, or, I wasn't there, but Christian, one of the youngsters that are out there, he chimed in the post. He made it very clear that he never studied with Remy. It doesn't mean you can't chime in about the art or the professor to some extent. We just have to make sure that, like many of my students knew Remy. Actually, all of my black belts, I produced 30 black belts for him to pass his test for basic black to first, second, third degree black belts. Obviously, they all knew him. Some of them knew him very, very well. Okay.
Well, I think you would want to make sure that, if whoever's speaking that way and trying to get their message apart, they may not even try doing it to try to make themselves look like that, but it may be an unfortunate side effect. That's where precision matters.
Yes. So here's the thing. People held me. Okay. I write posts out there. I've been doing it for decades, and people have held me accountable for everything I've written out there. You've seen it.
Yep.
And a lot of times, or actually, I can't remember a time that people have not said something about I said, and then I come up with the proof of what I said. And of course, there's no apologies or thanks for that information. They just go scouring in the corner with the tail in between the legs and don't talk about it because they don't want to bring up to the point or position that they were wrong. But when they get something wrong out there and I go to correct it, people cry foul. Well, I'm sorry. You can, if one of us is held to that level of accountability, then we all have to be held that level of accountability. I don't have to correct you if you didn't get it wrong in the first place. So if you're not going to get it right, keep your mouth shut. Okay. So I want to talk about getting it right, where this person should have kept his mouth shut, where the person should have said, it was told to me that this, I'm not sure how factual it was, but if we're talking the pros and cons of the art and he wasn't there, which he wasn't, this topic should never have been brought up by him. So this thing is about whether or not Modern Arnis was fragmented while Remy was still teaching healthy. Now, I talked to some. So first of all, let's paint the scene. Right off the bat, there was no internet. Well, okay, no,
for
dial-up
most
had
people.
just started.
Right. Not for most people. Yep.
I think a third of the population had computers at
Mhm.
the time Professor passed away.
Well, I mean, I remember, right, because at one point when only a few of us had internet, I think, one of 2 sites in the U.S. for Modern Arnis, and that was because, like, as you said, back in the 90s, it just wasn't that much presence.
I'm going to give 3 sites out there. So you had one,
Mhm.
I had one, and then there was modernist.com.
Oh no, even before that, though, is what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, okay, before that.
Right.
So
So it was that and the split off guys. You know who I'm talking about.
yeah, so we're looking at 2000 or
Yep.
2001,
Yeah. Now you start getting more. Yep.
2000. There was 28.3% of Americans had cell phones.
Mhm.
The cell phones with internet started in 2001, the year that Remy passed away. Facebook started in 2004, YouTube 2005, Instagram 2010. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And Remy was a beast, a freaking beast, a force to be reckoned with. And he did everything by mail or looking up in the magazines.
Yep. Yep. Those
Now,
were great. Good old days.
I felt, okay, so I thought we were all in tune with each other. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, Ontario, Canada, Ohio, and there's geographically, you see these are all connected. Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and then a jump down to Texas.
And
And we
Florida
were
at the time. At one
no,
point too.
no, no,
Not yet. Not yet.
no.
Or
And this is going to be my point. My whole
okay.
point is okay. So that group was in sync with each other.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That was my impression.
That group was in sync.
Yep.
The
Before
Philippines weren't in sync with us.
right.
Germany wasn't in sync with us.
Right. This is before Remy passed. Yes.
Right.
Although
Florida and Oregon and Washington were not in sync with us. And that's what I want to talk about.
True.
So
Different reasons for each.
there's and these are, so I remember the first time I went to Germany, Remy gave me a ticket, gave me the money, and goes, "You're going to Germany." Okay. So I'm hanging out with the DAV and they asked me about Dan Anderson. And I'm like, well, because he had been over there before. I go, Dan is like geographically challenged. Because Remy was on the West Coast and then he moved to the East Coast. And he hardly ever went back to the West Coast.
Yep.
And if people weren't hosting him, like Dan was at one time, he wasn't going out that way. I mean, and it's not, I mean, because this is what he did for a living. He didn't take vacations, so he wouldn't fly out to California or Oregon or Seattle just to fly out there. He had that, it had to pay for something,
Yep.
like different than me, where I go to a country, I make sure I teach there so I can write it off.
There you go.
But the same thing, and when I leave my house, or like when people say, "Hey, you got to come out and teach a seminar," well, this is what I need. Well, I can't afford all that. I go, well, then it's not worth me leaving my family, because it costs me time with my family, and there's no number that we can assign to that. That is a rightful number. Every weekend I'm away from my family. I can't get that time back.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. I wanted to take somebody out because they jerked me over in an event, and one of my dogs was passing, and I missed the one good last week with my dog because I went over to Europe. The guy dicked me over on the event, and I can't get that time back. And I will always remember that. And if that person tries, we've talked face to face since, and if it comes up again, I'm going to make it very clear, because he knew how much I loved my dog, because he'd been to the house and see the relationship I had, and when I'm away from these guys, I can't get any of that time back.
Right.
So when they asked about Dan, I go, like, Dan doesn't really come around, and I'm gonna put something in scale in a minute. And I go, he's geographically challenged. He's nowhere out there. And we happen to be leaving to go out to a dinner, and the same guys we were all talking. I go, hey, wait! And right by the door was a world map, and they had a big U.S. map, and I was able to illustrate this is where Modern Arnis is in the States. Okay, so if this is Modern Arnis, this is where Dan Anderson worked or lived.
Mm-hmm.
If this was Modern Arnis, this was Florida.
Right.
And there's areas that just did not do a lot of business. So if people thought it was fragmented, it could be because that they were geographically challenged and either had challenges or lack of commitment to actually go elsewhere. Hey, Tim Dobson said hello.
Hey, Tim. Oh, and then there was that one other group that did split away, but that was that was an unusual thing, right?
Until Arnis International or whatever that was.
No. The Associates. I'm just saying.
But that's another animal.
Right.
That was an individual who left.
Yep.
With a small handful of people.
And not under good terms.
So people had falling outs with Remy throughout the years.
Right.
But if you look at Modern Arnis as a whole, all the active members, I do not think we were fragmented.
No, I think it was good. In fact, actually, that I met you in Texas during the time where people, before Remy passed, so everybody was getting along. As far as supporting the art under Remy, right? Everybody was getting along that way. Everybody had preferences.
And there you go. There may have been factions.
Right.
Okay. There was cliques. I mean, I had my own network of people. I mean, pretty much all of Ontario was working with me, and then I had like Tim Murray in Illinois and Steve Scott in Indiana, and Chad was networking with us, and other people were networking with. So it wasn't a actually it's kind of a subculture of people who wanted to level up to the next level, doing FMA more seriously. But we still interacted with everybody.
Yep.
And because we were all about Remy.
Yep.
So he was still alive. He was still the glue. And we had a great network of going around and doing something. Now, here's the thing. If people say, well, the classes were different elsewhere, like the structures and all this other stuff. I'm like, well, like in Buffalo, we shared our curriculum with each other. It didn't mean we followed each other's curriculum, but we shared that information. We had the camp tests. We shared all that with each other, and people could choose to do what they want with it.
Yep.
Well, what's your curriculum, Tim? Oh, I like this. Well, I would change this, that, and the other thing. Well, then go change this, that, and the other thing.
Right. The approach, the order, all that. Yeah, it was actually. I remember that in Texas too. We would share and compare notes, and it was actually good for everybody because we made sure that we did what we wanted, but we also didn't forget anything.
Listen, did everyone like each other? No, because we weren't there for each other. We were there for Remy. He attracted a whole bunch of people that normally might not have ever wanted to hang out with each other.
Well, let me remember, I'm going to throw another bone into the fire here because, you burn bones. So people I know have said in the past, and to me, I don't get it because it's a chapter, but there was the thing of, the Can-Am chapter of IMAF being somehow separate. It wasn't. But why don't you talk about that a little bit as well? That's, again, actually us getting all along and working as Remy wanted it, directed us.
Okay, so let's paint the scene. At the time, the Canadian exchange rate was close to, and at one time, 50 cents on the dollar. Mm-hmm. Hey, Jason, and here we go. Jason Arnold, how you doing?
He would remember.
He was one of the Canadians.
Yep.
So Remy, it was too expensive for the Canadians to bring Remy in.
Yep.
Really what it boiled down to. He goes, Tim, Canada's yours. I want you to go in and develop Canada. Okay. And Jason, who's just chimed in, was one of the crew that would go support the seminars in Buffalo, as well as support the seminar or the camps in Michigan. Mm-hmm. Now, Michael Donovan was the guy who brought Modern Arnis into Canada. he would host them in periodically, but when it's 50 cents on the dollar, it made it really rough.
Yep.
So, you know, a $2,000 seminar became a $4,000 seminar. And that's before all the extra expenses. So Remy had me form the Can-Am chapter of the IMAF. Yeah, there we go. We were 100% part of Remy's group.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the way I remember it.
So Remy said, "Hey, I want you to do this." You know, so I didn't want to make a Canadian chapter. I'm the American. How does that make sense? Now, initially, we were going to do the Great Lakes chapter of the IMAF. Something went sideways with that. Someone played some games and heard I was going to use the name and then captured the name before I could.
Okay.
Worked out better. Can-Am chapter of the IMAF is much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It was a group that worked inside. I mean, I was Remy's Can-Am director. My job was to do a whole bunch of things for Remy. Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. Datu was our rep and leader to prepare us for professor. Oh. You want to read that one there?
Sure. Let's see. From Mud, there we go. Think how many divisions of Christians, kind of like all the different groups from their same idea, but different groups. I mean, people are always going to factionalize. It doesn't mean they're fractionated, right? It doesn't mean that they're split, right? You're split once you separate and make your own organization, sure. But if you're all united under a single person and there are different people that prefer different people, that's just human nature. Not a big deal.
So we had a website with schools listed because Remy's page didn't even have that because the people managing it was terrible at doing that job. Right. I had seminars for professor. I also had seminars that were for the students, you know, like me and somebody else. Hey, how you doing, Rich? Then someone tried to say, you know, we should have a blackout on the weekends that professors teaching. That's most weekends of the year.
Right.
No, we're not going to do that. Because if someone wants to see me over Remy, then Remy wasn't doing his job.
And Remy wasn't worried about that, right?
Remy didn't care. Remy was sending me people. Right. Remy said, Tim will come and do a seminar for you. It's just that some people were just being stupid, you know. And because of my higher level of commitment to the craft, people were seeing things that Remy taught me that they weren't taught. And like, Tim's not doing Modern Arnis. Can my guys pass the test? Yes. Well, then obviously I must be doing the arts. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing was, we did this stuff. And when people say, do I need to be a member? You don't need to be a member. But this is what it costs. A percentage goes to professor. We have a newsletter. We'll put your school up. We'll put websites. We'll put seminars up there. All of the seminars I can get my hands on of professors was up there, plus a whole bunch of mine. And if anyone else had given me any of their seminars, I would have put their seminars up if they were a member as well. That was the deal. You know, the whole idea was to show there was so much activity for Modern Arnis going on. I mean, can you imagine? Okay, so professor did about, let's say he did 50 events a year. Okay, now for those who are tuning in for the first time, he used to do 2 seminars a weekend.
Yep.
Crazy, in like completely different states. So let's say he's just doing 40 seminars, and then I was doing another 20. So there's 60. Let's say Rocky was doing 15 or 20 himself. Now we can be up to, 80 seminars. I mean, hell, with enough of us, we have 100 seminars a year to choose from. Mm-hmm. What kind of power would that be? Global coverage. Mm-hmm. So let me see. Gatekeeping was their actions, either because they didn't want anyone to succeed or their own fear projected on others to just being malicious. Datu definitely gave us the ability to get close to professor. Datu was way more organized with curriculum than the other. Listen, no one had curriculum. They had access to it. They just didn't do anything with it.
Right. Well, and yeah, we as you found out later on that, right? The curriculum I got from Eric, I guess, came largely influenced by you, plus some other stuff Eric had put on there. But it was a starting point, which makes sense. Again, comparing notes is a good thing.
Likely, Tye's curriculum was based on my chassis,
right?
And and I know others who did the same thing. And I, what, my chassis was based on what John Bryant did.
Sure.
And that may have been worked with Remy, because Remy was a silent financier or partner in the school. So, and that's all good. It's all, it's because, but, it goes back to, well, there wasn't a curriculum. Well, Remy did not have a belt by belt written out curriculum. But then again, how many systems of martial arts actually had that the students didn't develop their own? Because every time I talk about other systems, they're like, we didn't have a written curriculum. We had to make our own shit up. Not our own material, our own syllabus.
And it wasn't total. I mean, you had the end point, not the end point. The starting point, in my point of view, is, we had what it took, what you had, all the requirements to pass black. And so you knew that. And how you structured yourself to get there, fair game. But that's a curriculum. It's just, got fewer delineated checkpoints.
See, Flint had curriculum that went back to the 70s.
Oh, nice.
Yet that was not the norm.
Yep.
Well, here's the thing, and we go back to the basics. And this is really why there may be some perception of fractional. So I'm going to, lack of commitment, or people want things done. If you did it as a secondary or tertiary arts, you're not going to approach the training the same way.
No, not at all. Right.
I mean, listen, art within the art means you're a cross trainer and you only did the parts that you wanted. Remy taught the entire art to everybody that showed up.
He showed everything, yes.
But people who tested under the art with the art, and here's the problem with the art within the art, and maybe we should go do a show on this again. People know what they did to pass their Arnis test, but they forgot on how much of their other training factored into that. They had done years of punching and kicking already that were in the forms.
Right.
They did wrist locks and controls. Like, I already knew most of this stuff already. Great. So, they just look at what they had to learn to add on to their base. They forgot on how much of that work for their base contributed to that. So when I look at things, so Ty and I just recently talked to somebody, and the comment came up, Tim, I got to ask you a question. You're really good. Oh, thank you. How come people X, Y, and Z are not as good? And then we got in the conversation of the art within your art.
But contrary to what people might think, you weren't bound-mouthing people. You were just talking about what you emphasized and where you went. When you
committed to the craft.
Right. But you weren't taking it as an opportunity, you can badmouth X, Y, and Z, they're no good. You were mainly talking about, if I remember right, that it's a function of the focus.
Right. Well, first of all, I said not knowing who the person was right away because they didn't want to mention the name.
Right.
I said, well, first of all, we have to understand that most of the people who are, which is probably 95%, if not more, of the Americans were taught it as the art within your art, which was how to enhance your primary system, not replace it, enhance it without compromising the integrity of that base system. So still what you're doing is, if you're not compromising that base system, your expression is going to look like that base system.
And we saw
that's not what Remy taught.
Right. He allowed it, but it's not what he taught.
He allowed it for cross ranking. And that's the problem. Too many people misunderstand the difference between ranking up in modern from the ground up versus crossing in. And that's why I don't think you should be a cross rank grandmaster, but that's another story. I compared Datu's curriculum, organizational cards, to Kempo consistency, and it attracted me from from JKD for a bit. So yeah, Jason had Kempo karate. He was under Paul Irish, who was Larry Hartzell's guy up in Canada, and it was cool hanging around him because he'd ask me questions that a lot of people didn't ask. Once again, like this weekend, doing it in an actual instructor's class for instructors.
Nice. Yeah.
So,
and we enjoy that every fall too with our own instructor development class.
But I think the problem is, and we're digressing, getting off the main thing, is that goes why the art's not respected a lot, because a lot of people they misunderstand their ranking, and I think it's been sold to them differently by some of their own people. And once again, I think because of how they got there, they forgot, oh, this was much easier than my Ish and Root test. Well, of course it was. Because you already worked your fundamentals. If you didn't have your fundamentals, if you didn't know how to punch and kick, how hard would this test really be?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I even noticed that. So my favorite and hardest Modern Arnis test was for second, or Lacan Dello at third level. That was a blast, but that was then even more in depth and concentrating. It's the development time that it took to get prepped for that was what it took, and it all got to come out on that test. So that's when it came out. It didn't come out on the first.
So what I'm going to say, he just said Dello, which is 2. In Modern Arnis, we went black first, which was not a junior belt.
Right.
It was a typo, but we kept it. You had basic black, and then you got your first degree. So there's 11 black belts. So as a 6th degree black belt, that actually meant I was a 7th level black belt. Because Lacan, which is the male designation, Dayang, the female, is not a probationary belt. All belts can be probationary.
Right. It's not a specifically probationary. Mine wasn't, and yours wasn't.
No.
Abel's wasn't. And several people's weren't, but a lot of people.
None of my students, actually, my students were in the room where people were made probationary.
Yep.
But my students were full-fledged Lacans and Dayangs.
Sure.
Same thing happened for me. And initially, when you got your Lacan or your probationary Lacan, you're supposed to wear the 3rd degree brown belt.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, but yeah, that sounds familiar.
And of course, that happened at the camp, the Michigan camp.
Michigan, yeah, which I wasn't able to make as a grad student. I still, it would have been nice to make one of those, but couldn't swing it.
So let's put some things in let's go back to why would someone think. So this person is a 2nd gen, and we know some of the people that he's talked to.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think he has the perception that it was fragmented? I already got it in my mind. We even hinted at it at the beginning of the show. But why do you think people might think that? And I'm assuming, once again, I can only go by what he wrote. And I mean, first of all, what would you think he meant by fragmented?
Well, there's 2 ways to take it, right? Do you mean that they're full, complete splits, or do you think that there's clicks and things like that? From what we described, I think you could interpret it as clicks, but I wouldn't use the fragmented word in that case. So I'm not sure.
I got the vibe because he talked about how he wasn't traditional and the teaching was different, that maybe he thought that people were isolated and we didn't have a cohesive. I mean, I wish he was on right now.
Separated, kind of that kind of
thing. I'd be like, hey, dude, come on in. But and if you know who you are, if you're listening, love to have you pop on and not try to roast you. Right. But I also want to put in the context of what I was saying the other day. So my thought was that we were not cohesive together. That's how I took.
Yeah, I think that probably depends on your perspective, right? I think probably some people might have felt that. But I would say by and large, at least from my experience, limited though it was to just Texas, although it's 3 different locations in Texas, so it might as well be 3 states. The everyday participant would not have felt that. That's my opinion.
There you go. So I think we had a good culture. Mm-hmm. We all knew each other. Mm-hmm. It was always good to see everyone, even if you didn't like them, because the family came together to support Remy.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was it. Mm-hmm. Even without the internet. Here's the problem.
Maybe because there was no internet, it might be friendlier.
There we go. Well, probably because then you had to say stuff. Well, okay,
in
listen.
person.
So Ty and I, so most of Remy students fall into two categories: baby boomers and Gen Xers.
Pretty
Okay,
much, yeah.
which means we all handled our shit. You know, and you don't want just if you want to see rants, go plug in the face, or actually just look up on YouTube. It'll be easier probably to find Gen X rants. It'll probably come up left and right. Don't mess with the Gen Xers. Don't wake them. Don't wake the beast.
But you and I, we're Gen X Prime, first year.
Gen X Prime, baby. You're one of Gen X, which means we didn't fight on the internet. We fought for real. We were a bunch of little kids that went out in the streets, and we were little people, not adults, but we had all the social interaction back and forth. We talked amongst each other. We fought amongst each other. We played with each other. Your bike broke down. You had to fix that shit on your own because we didn't have a cell phone or anything. We did stuff. We didn't go running home. Well, sometimes we ran home to mommy because sometimes I got punched in the face. But the thing here is we had to fix shit our own. Uh-oh. There needs to be a meeting with all the first-gen instructors to clarify the gray matter. Hopefully it can happen. We've already offered, but they would rather have a group that excludes the people that know the facts. We'll just put it that way. Gen X Prime with free delivery of ass whooping. Woo! But here's the thing. We did shit. Now, some people didn't want to do stuff. So here's my thought on the take. So we talked about geographically there's regions. So I'm going to use Dan Anderson as the example. He's up in Portland, Oregon. He used to host Remy. He stopped hosting Remy. Don't know why. Okay. I know it would be, well, actually, I've got a few ideas why. Remy moved his operation to East Coast. Now you got a bigger airfare to bring him out. You didn't have the support mechanisms you had back when he first did this stuff. You know, and Dan was a karate guy first and foremost. You know, so he goes, well, I'm going to keep trying. Okay, Ty, if there was a roundtable meeting from multiple organizations out there, would you attend that? If you were invited?
If I were invited, probably.
Same with me, Dean. So if you have a roundtable thing and you want to have multiple people from representing different things versus just one particular clique, I'm not speaking for Ty, but I'm definitely open to the idea. Ty?
Yeah, for that purpose, sure. There, I have some other thoughts on actual events and stuff, but that's a different deal.
Yes. Okay, there we go. So we're game to go on a neutral territory. Obviously, we have to make sure a criteria fits for everyone. Can't be a whole bunch of people coming together to whoop up on one.
Right.
And Rich said he would try to attend. It would be, and I'm assuming it would be some kind of virtual thing, Dean. But here's the thing. Using Dan as the example, he's in Pacific Northwest. It is so much harder for him to see Remy. He goes, yep. He goes, the purpose would be for the student body to correct. Okay. So here's the deal. You got Dan, who is way over there. I can't even think of how many states away he is. It's that far. I mean, I just got back from California, so it'll be pretty much a similar flight.
At least 6.
So, Remy was, okay, here we go. Detroit, within a year, he did like 8 seminars within a 2-hour radius of Detroit. He did 11 seminars in 1 year in a 2-hour radius of Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I would go and visit all these places and hang all the time, taking advantage all the time. Because for me, that's a chip shot, 4 to 6 hours of driving, and I was there.
That's why I love living.
That's like going for milk, right?
Right. Well, and I lived in the middle of all the 3 major cities that he would be in. And so I got to hit every every camp, 2 to 3 a year, sometimes 1, but usually 2 or 3. And then every seminar, which was 4 to 6 or so, because I was right in the middle of everything. It was perfect. Perfect.
Well, I mean, for that matter, I mean, you got Kelly Warden and Dan Anderson being up there.
Sure.
It makes it hard. I mean, when your business is up there and everyone else is over here, it makes it much, much harder. If the situation was reversed, if Remy was all West Coast and I got hooked on the East Coast, I wouldn't have seen him anywhere near as much as those others saw him.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. We saw him more because he practically lived. Well, he lived on this side. You know, he had multiple properties up and down the coast, and he had more family over here that he'd couch surf with. Although you'd give him the bed. So if you were in that area, I could understand why you would think you weren't part of a community. And that's how I perceive this person's comments about being fractional. But the thing here is, once again, he wasn't there, so he really couldn't comment on it. But he's going for secondhand information. And the problem here is, without having information from people like you and I who are in the loop of what was going on, it's hard to compare notes. When everyone has the same notes, right. Another area that was very similar to that would have been, wait for it, Florida.
Right. I think he did camps down there once or twice, and then there was a problem, which turned out to be not a problem, but it still created a weirdness.
So I mean, let's do this. So we're going to we'll talk Dan Anderson. Dan Anderson used to host the camps up in the Pacific Northwest. A couple of them had some seminars. I want to say this the right way. Okay, let's back up and then we'll use him as the example. Or I'll give you a couple names out there. I am not going to fault anyone for their decisions, but those decisions, there's repercussions of those decisions. All right. I don't have kids. And the reason why is that I put my martial arts first and foremost. It was my career, it was my passion, and then my career. I would not bring a child in this world that I could not properly support. That's what a man does. A male just puts his DNA wherever the hell they want and don't worry about shit like that. I'm a man. I was brought up to be a man. And yes, I'm a Gen X man, so I can say the word man, even if it's not the PC thing to say, but screw y'all. I'm a freaking man. I'm not going to bring someone in this world that I cannot provide for. I'm too old to have my own child. So my thing is, I bring in dogs from shelters. That's how I can, I don't like seeing dogs killed. I provide good homes for them. Ty's met a whole bunch of my dogs. And dogs are easier to deal with crazy schedules than children, which is why I haven't brought children in this house. Because they'd be at school all day and I'd be teaching all night. And it's not fair for them. Kids don't understand when their parents are working all the time and they hardly spend any time with them. It's because that they love them. So when I make these comments, I applaud all the people who've made those decisions to be with their families. Okay. But any of these people could have wanted to see Remy more. Dan could have came up to see more. I saw Dan twice in Buffalo by himself because my instructor, John, was part of the Church of Scientology. And so was Dan. And they had that kind of connection. Dan came out twice to Buffalo, once while I was a student there. I think another time I was gone. And then I saw Dan once teaching with Remy in Detroit, Michigan. And he was teaching karate. He wasn't teaching Arnis. And this is when he made the comment to the group that he had retired from Modern Arnis. That's it. That's all I saw him. And so when we start talking about what happened in Modern Arnis, I went to 180 events, 30 of which were training camps. Okay. So when we talk about, and that's over my 15 years, averages out to one event a month. Okay. So when people talk about what happened in the arts, I want to know the scale of what they're doing, because a lot of times people only saw Remy once a year. And even if that was 15 years, like me, that would only be 15 times. That's not seeing a person a lot. And most people did not go to camp. Most people would see him when he was when they're in their town, and then some of those people went to camp. So when someone tells me what happens in the art, if you weren't around, how would you know what happened? Bruce Chu, guy we like. Okay. While Remy was teaching, okay, I met Bruce 3 times. I met him at the Tucker, Georgia camp. That was the first time we met. Then he hosted, well, actually, no. I'm not sure if he hosted 1 or 2 camps for Remy. I went to the last camp that he's hosted, but Randy Shea, along with Al Garza, hosted 2 camps at Rice University. And the first year, they invited all the top guys and camp hosts. And Bruce was brought down to that one.
Yeah, I guess I saw him at that one, but we didn't actually talk until years later.
And then the other time I saw him was at the Orlando camp that he hosted. So out of 16 years about being with Remy, I only saw him 3 times. Chad Bailey, who says he's been to all these events, I didn't meet him until after Remy passed away. Brian Zwolinski, he was a correctional officer raising a family. He wasn't running a school. He was a student of Lowry, so he was actually a second gen for the longest time and eventually took over Lowry's program. So I don't even know what that means as far as did he just have a training group out of somebody else's or whatnot, but he was a corrections officer with a family, you know. I only saw Brian. I saw him, I think, at the 2 Harrisburg camps, at 1 Michigan camp. I was at 2 of the Massachusetts camps, only saw him there once. I don't recall seeing him at any of the seminars. And the 1 Texas camp. So
right. I was going to say, I saw him in Texas at least once.
So, and I'm talking while Remy was alive and healthy, teaching still.
Right.
Okay. So that's 5. Okay. 180. So when people talk about whether things are fractional and stuff of that nature, I want to ask is how much of these people chose to be hermits? You know, you became a hermit after Remy passed away. But you were actively following Remy around and throughout Texas.
Yep.
You made a choice. You made sacrifices to do that. Not everyone else did the same thing. And when when those people didn't make that level of commitment to attend these events, then they really shouldn't be talking about what Modern Arnis is and what Remy was doing. If you don't have the right scale, you can sit there and say, listen, we're in Orlando. We're kind of isolated from everyone else. I mean, hell, even after Remy passed away, Bruce was in Virginia for the longest time. I only saw him once.
Was that when
when you got him to come by?
Yeah,
he's been invited how many times to hang with us? But then again, he had job commitments and all this other stuff. So I don't blame him.
And yeah, definitely.
I'm not blaming him, but we can't sit there and say that this is all this stuff that happened, and then and just like, okay, well, no, you were hardly around. I mean, I remember. Oh, Dean's here again. I want to make a comment about this. Dean had Brian and Chad Bailey on the camp. They talked about the Massachusetts camp, and they talked about, hey, we would just go on the floor and train right away. And Dean was like, they just did that? No, that's bullshit. They never did that. But Brian and Chad, when they were going, Chad Bailey, they weren't going as teachers. They were going as somebody else's students. So that teacher may have taken care of all the admin stuff. You're not going to go to a university, college university, and hop on the floor without doing some form of registration ahead of time. Would you agree with that?
I never saw a camp. Admittedly, I started like 93 might have been my first camp. But I started a couple years earlier. But anyway, camps, I never saw a camp where you wouldn't clear out the registration stuff first, even seminars.
And Richard Roy would never let that happen. Now, let's say they came late and they report in, hey, listen, get on the floor. We'll take care of this right when the session's done. Sure, that's a little different. You just didn't hit the floor. They got their facts. I'm sorry. Their facts are wrong because I know who the host was. And that's what started me talking to Dean. And here's Dean with his comment. See, right there, of the students who didn't go to camps, the Can you get my glasses aren't working?
Okay, yeah. So Dean goes, see right there. If the students who didn't go to the camps, then what was their funnel for information? What the instructor brought back, or if the instructor brought Remy in? And I would say yes is the answer. Sometimes it was what the people brought
Here's
back.
the other one.
Sometimes the hosting. So Dean's rest of it. This is my opinion by virtue of my interviews, which leads to the gray matter area, or the gray area matter. Who got what and when? That's from Dean.
And there's other things too. I mean, and here's the thing that people throw Remy under the bus all the time. Well, Remy used to say this to everybody. There's a cultural element that wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And people didn't try to understand that. And some people may have picked up on it and then try to take advantage of that.
Right. Or not putting it in its context.
Oh, you could do that too, but do this instead.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? Oh, he didn't want to say you're wrong. But like, we've got the only art out there, it seems, that this art within the art bullshit out there.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, you're all part of the family. Don't get me wrong. But when you do the art within your art, Ty, what does that mean?
Well, you're operating within some other art, so you can't be doing the whole thing. That can't be all of your thing is only the art within your art, because then it doesn't even make sense.
Because you're not even doing the entire art.
Yep.
Oh, I don't do the forms. I don't do the wrist locks. I don't do the this. I don't do the that. Remy had this phenomenal martial system that people ignored. They took it as a martial buffet to pick and choose what they wanted. They were given this multi-course dinner, and they chose not to have the entire meal. Oh, I don't want the salad. I don't want the desserts. I just want the beans and the this and the that. Okay, I digressed. Did we all get along all the time? No. Did we fight amongst ourselves at times? Sure, why not?
I would say, as far as the events and the camps and the seminars, yeah, we got all along all the time, because none of this stuff happened during that stuff where everybody was professional, because Remy wouldn't allow any other thing.
We were there for Remy.
Yep.
There was a couple people that tried to imitate Remy too much. There was a couple people I was going to knock out because they did the finger thing, the tap out thing when someone's tapping out, and they were trying to be like Remy. And I saw someone almost get his ticket cashed by a correctional officer instructor. Like, is there a problem over? I mean, this guy was going to rip Mark the Tartar off it. Oh my God. 6'4" Ishinu. Actually, he's a defensive instructor at the police academy, hardcore martial artist.
Sure.
And someone's at our camp that we did in Buffalo, having the person tap, and they're trying to be Remy. They're not.
Mm-hmm.
The person's in pain. And this guy was going to rip him up right there and beat the living shit out of him. I saw it happen another place. I got in this guy's. I was going to knock his ass out. I go, you're not Remy. Stop the bullshit.
Right.
Remy, this guy just hurt someone. Oh. But I got my revenge, because I would just sit there and say, Professor, do a technique. I go, hey, Professor, could you do a throw from there? Bam. Could you do a choke from there? Bam. Professor, could you do that a couple more times? I'm missing it. Boom, boom, boom. Thank you, Professor. Yep. And it's like,
well, and it matters that it was the professor doing it, because you knew he had the control.
Right.
That's you don't necessarily know about the other people. So
we were in Canada. Someone jacked up Chuck's thumb. I went after the guy, and eventually they popped it, went down. I'm like, dude, who the,
Right.
See, now that's the stuff, like we would see. Listen, we all try to imitate Remy. I get it. But when they're doing the tap out thing, you got to let them go. Let them go. Listen, we all do it to some minor extent. Not at someone's health's expense. No.
Absolutely. Damage is not what is allowed. Maybe some pain, sure, but not damage.
So, see, Dean, I mean, this would be good information, but the problem here is, you have different perspective. I remember, once again, it was Dean's show that Brian made the comment, oh, Remy used to come in and beat the crap out of people and take the toughest guy and beat them up, and then get it and recruit people. And Dean's like, I wouldn't. No. I'm like, no, Brian, you were Lowry's student watching Lowry get thrown around. You were like, wow, he can throw my teacher around. And like, no, Remy took the best person in the room to demonstrate the potential of the art.
Right.
And as a student, as a kid, looking up to his teacher getting thrown around. But it wasn't about Remy beating the crap out of people to get them to go to camp, because really, people would just say, that's fucking bullshit. Why the hell would you do that? I don't want to be around that guy. He doesn't take care of the people in the seminar.
Look, if the person that if he really was beating someone down, that person was not going to be doing the rest of the seminar. So he used him as a training dummy, and he was very effective, and it was very impressive, but he didn't beat the crap out of him. That's my take.
Okay, you can read this one, because I'm going to.
Sure. Dean Franco. Well, he also said something before too, but anyway, so mind you, I'm not saying.
Let me get back up there.
So Dean first goes, the art within your art has caused confusion per feedback I've received past interviews. Got it. Yeah. Mind you, I'm not saying the art within your art was not a legit aspect of maybe Remy's approach for those that wanted it or something like that. He'll finish in a second, probably.
Yeah. Listen, I have no problem cross-training.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem cross-ranking. Unfortunately, the article kicked, which was one of the biggest shots in the arm, was also one of the biggest kicks in the butt.
Right.
And because Filipino culture and okay, here we go.
Aspect of the overall art. Yeah. So what we said. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what it did is established a very, very wide range of expectations, which unfortunately,
or lack thereof.
Right. So either very, very low expectations if you're really, really dabbling, because he'd rather have you doing it than not, which is great. Mm-hmm. Or you could be diving in full force and rocking it, and he'd love that. He'd really love that. But he's going to have the whole gamut, and then
Here we go.
Bob Guida. Hey, sir, how you doing? Let's see. Let me read this one because it's long. So Bob says, I saw a shitty Kempo fourth Dan hit a color belt extremely hard at a seminar years ago. When people noticed the old guard lined up to teach him control. If I remember right, Jason Arnold hit him so hard I thought he was going to snap in half. That sounds about right.
And Jason's little guy. So, hey, Rob, by the way, one of my girls just got hit in, they registered Zoe. The aunt's trying to get a hold of you. Got a baseball in the face and can't compete and do anything for about a month. Fractured some bones and stuff. So if they haven't got a hold of you, they're trying to. He's hosting a tournament. Anyone in the the Metro Buffalo area, June 1st is the MSD Kempo Enter the Arena tournaments. Nice. Open to all. Whoa. I can't do it like an arena. Okay. You know what I really need to do? I need like a Thunderdome. Enter the Thunderdome music. Well, actually, I have to have Tina Turner for that. Let's skip on that.
Well, you can also
get
this is art within art, or very confusing and open to interpretation. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's that wide range of expectations. So then, depending where you ended up in that range of expectations, your perspective may be different. And it makes it, and that's, I would say that's part of why Modern Arnis sometimes gets that question that Tim was talking about earlier, which is, hey, you're pretty good. You're really good. How come I'm not seeing that with others? And it's because, were they trying to be Filipino martial artists first and foremost, or were they training to add to what they already had, which is a different thing? They were getting to be a better martial artist, no doubt about it, but they might not be the best pure representative of the movement style. And so that's going to, people that know how FMA guys move are going to notice that. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it does put things in the right perspective in my idea. I know some people would take it badly, but if you're an awesome martial artist and made more awesome because what Remy showed you, yet you didn't move like a pure FMAist, you should go, okay, that's fine. I'm an awesome martial artist. That's cool. But there's another aspect. What if you want to be that? Then how should
Guess who called me the other day?
Who I have no idea.
Ron Browning.
Oh, nice. How's he doing?
He's doing great. And he was talking about how proud he is of me and all the stuff that I've done. And he goes, but here, Tim, you know what? I make this shit. I'm not you. I go, now, Ron Browning. For those who don't know Ron Browning, he's another Remy in his style of martial arts.
Excellent, fantastic martial artist and a top guy in the first place.
One of the most genuine guys you ever,
Mm-hmm.
I love this guy. And the thing is, okay, listen, he's like us at times, very snobby about his martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
He's very forward on what he thinks you should have, but he's also okay with your opinion on what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes to me. This guy fought for Don King. He trained Guy Mesker to be the UFC champion, Dan and Sansu Kung Fu, and would travel and teach with Remy some.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, if Remy would have been healthy when Wally stepped down due to his medical condition, Ron probably would have stepped up, not his son. Not to take over the art, to take over the position in the Big Three seminars.
Right, for the grappling part of things and all the other things he could bring. Yep.
So we were talking, and he goes, Tim, man, I don't have what you got. You got so much more when it comes to the stick. I just make it work. Forehand, backhand, center. I'm like, dude, that's what I talk about all the time. You're doing the same thing I do.
Yep.
I don't have your finesse and all this other stuff. Now, this guy is, he's another Remy. He's another Wally J. He is the MMA version of Wally J and Remy put together. It's like their love child, but different. But they're
there you go.
No,
he's amazing. Yeah, if anybody gets a chance, you should check him out before he's not doing this anymore. I'm not sure.
But he's got it right.
Yep.
He's cross training. He goes, I can't teach what you teach, but man, I got it. I work it for me. Mm-hmm. And he always defers. This is a guy who's a grandmaster and defers to people who are more knowledgeable in their respective arts than he is.
Yep.
Chris Davison, Datu Hartman, Rob G. All right. Hold, you can have to
I'll read the Dean one. Yeah. So Dean's back says a roundtable with all could solidify the confusion. I think upcoming students may never know what is Modern Arnis pending what they're exposed to. Maybe they are getting just pieces pending lineage and what their instructor received. I mean, that's what you always get, right? Whatever your instructor shared with you, sure, those are the pieces you're going to get, or a superset, because you might not get everything they shared with you. But it's certainly they can't share stuff with you that they don't have. Yep. Guida says, "Stop smoking." Nice.
Oh, I don't want to pull that other guy up.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know who that is.
You could put another post. I don't know. I don't want to bring your name up, unfortunately. Well, Mr. YouTuber, I'm not going to bring that name up on our thing, even though I may have said that earlier. Listen. You know who the most hated man is? The one that speaks the truth. And the problem here is when it comes to a lot of this stuff, people can't be honest with each other because they can't be honest with themselves. A lot of people don't want to hear the things. I'm very careful when I talk to one of our acquaintances because he has family who's in the industry. And when I say things, I don't want it to come out like I'm trashing his family members. Mm-hmm. I constantly talk, people ask me, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? We don't get along. I was just at an event. Buddha Brothers and I were talking about possibly doing a project together. They asked me about some of their people. I'm like, talented martial artist, but the person's got baggage. But hey, by all means, work with him. If he's working with you, you should do it. He knows the shit. Mm-hmm. But here's the baggage that goes with it. Talked about our friend Pintados. Had a good day. I go, hey, he goes, his videos are probably one of the most successful videos that they put out there. I go, good for you. We like Pintados. Mm-hmm. But we talk about all these different things, and it's like we talk about stuff. I don't want to give it away, and they understand that there's some things there's some people out there I try to avoid, not because they're malicious. They just their compasses are calibrated differently, and they just don't understand. Mm. And if we're not all calibrated in a similar direction, there could be some issues. I've seen some people just do bad things, not because they're bad people. They just had bad judgment, and they didn't realize that it was bad judgment. And as much as you try to educate them, it's still the same. Like, okay, you got to do you. I'm going to do me. Ego, pride. Whose Jimmy is bigger? Mine's not that big, so it's a problem with the thing with ours. Okay, yeah.
People gonna people.
Yeah. So, I mean, Dean, like I said, a round table, if you're going to have the different factions as opposed to all the different people that decided to click together. See, I think the person who's instigated this, the person who made this comment that inspired this topic, is hanging out with a bunch of misfits that are on their own. And if you really look at things, they have no impact or following. But they get from in front of a lens and they try to say stuff. So, well, aren't you doing the same thing, Tim? Well, I got close to 50, or we got schools around the world that are networking with us. Okay, we've got a group. We have training camps. We actually have an organization. It's not me and a handful of people training out of my basement or my garage, teaching out of a part-time school, doing hardly anything, Now, I've got members who do this out of passion. Ty's a perfect example. He doesn't charge a dime. We charges them, but it's not in money.
They have to put up with me.
There's a level of commitment.
That's right.
They have to do, because he trains outside all year round, snow and all. Mm-hmm. Hey, Miguel, I hope, I never heard from you. Did the seminar go well? So I visited his school.
Nice. Hey, Mike. Nice.
So if you're in Rancho Cordova, which is part of Sacramento or a suburb, little hidden gem in there, Rancho Cordova Martial Arts for Yao Yan, Filipino Thai boxing, and Doce Pares. Plus, he's got phenomenal martial arts supplies.
Pass on our hellos also to your better half as well.
Yeah. No, they go, hey, PG Thai. Dan Medina.
GM Dan, how you doing, sir? Watching on your drive home. You're watching and driving.
Why don't I even feel? Yeah. Well, I don't know. She says hello. Good.
Awesome.
Good. Awesome. The problem here is the martial art world. What do we do? We take a bunch of insecure people and turn them into insecure egomaniacs. And then we become a bunch of alphas. He's doing well. Nice. And then, of course, you get some people who know how to interact with people, or just people who are just so confident with themselves. They're like, I don't care. I don't like if people get the information wrong out there, I'm going to correct them. I'm not going to back away from that. Our history needs to be told the proper way. Okay. Facts are facts. Mm-hmm. Okay. We cannot get them skewed. You want to give us your opinion on something? That's fine. If you're going to give your opinion on something and you weren't there, make sure you clarify. I'm not old enough to do this, but it sounds like to me that X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Great. But I tell you what, we were a team. We didn't always get along. You have a Super Bowl team. Right. Doesn't mean all the members get along with each other, but they were there for the main goal.
I can remember several groups sometimes helping out in the sidebar training sessions, like in between sessions or whatnot. And all these people that necessarily get along together were still helping the rest of the students together in small groups. And it was good stuff.
I would get Randy Shea's people, Chuck Goss's people, yep. Kenny's people coming up to me, asking me, hey, how do you do this technique?
Yep.
How's the form done? I really like the way you do your abanicos. What's your training method? And, Actually, I remember Karen coming up to me at the Amazon. She's like, Ken's my teacher and all this, but I really like him a lot. But how do you? I go, it's not disrespectful asking for information,
right?
I mean, he's one of the juniors. I mean, he was coming up, and I have black belts that were the same degree as him. Of course, I would know more information. That makes perfect sense. Not to mention, as we talked about, he was one of the men. I mean, once again, I think 95% plus was the art within your art. Just remember that. The question here is, you got to ask, who wasn't the art within your art? You're watching two of them right now. The only difference between Ty and I is he did foo for, well, okay, that too. Okay. Here we go. I got
it. There you
go. Ty did foo first, but I know his teacher. Like I said, we're related curriculum-wise. His teacher taught him as a standalone program, just like I did my Kuntao, my Sikran, my Balintwak. I learned these arts from the ground up. So it doesn't matter if you started somewhere else, if you trained it the right way. Okay.
Heck, I had two separate programs, two separate clubs, both on and off campus for those two arts.
Datu, I told Bill Adams I'd get him an invite onto one of your podcasts. Is there a sign-up sheet? So, Bill Reynolds is an interesting cat. He's actually a legacy black belt. His father was the one that brought Ishinru karate to Buffalo.
Wow.
And then handed it over to someone else. I really, you know what? I would love to have Bill on the show. I guess we need to figure out how that would work, because we are a Filipino martial arts show, although he is part Filipino. But he's teaching Ishinru karate.
Right.
So, yeah, okay. I'm looking at the other comment. I'm trying to understand. There's a question here.
Well, I got an example that's a yes. You know him. He's your guy.
Well, here, let's just do this.
There you go. So Paulo goes, can a good Modern Arnis group exist today without any direct ties to Professor Prices?
Now, before we say that, do you, I mean, obviously they'd have to be a second generation student. Is that what you're talking about, Paulo?
That's what I was thinking.
I would like to get that clarification before we.
What do you mean by direct tie? Do you mean has met them and done one seminar, or was actually a student under Remy, or were they what generation? Yeah, exactly. There's a few ways you can go with that.
So if you be
on the same page, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to. Do we want to do something crazy?
Well, I think in principle, so. I'll answer even without that clarification, right? In my mind, in principle, sure. Right? If because that's the only way the art's going to go on. If good people are passing it along, at some point there'll be people training and propagating the art that did not train directly with the professor. But in my mind, for me to like that, I would prefer to be training what Remy did, not the result of that.
So you're making it hard for us to say no, but I still got a question.
Right?
Do you mean
he clarified good, but he didn't clarify direct.
All right.
So capable fighters, that's
Paulo, I'm sending you a goddamn invite. Okay? I'm sending you an invite. I know this is.
There goes the neighborhood. Their instructor. Wait a second. The schools.
Okay, hold on.
So let's go back. So the Modern Arnis group, who's the instructor of the instructor, did not train. So that's third generation. Is that right?
Hold on. Well, let's do this. Paulo, I'm sending you an invite.
There goes the neighborhood. I'm teasing.
Bob Smith, Rich Parsons is going to be doing something in the metro area. There's also there's a JKD. Oh man, it was fast. Paulo came on real fast. Bob Smith, Kurtz Cornwall or something, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look it up. He's teaching Jeet Kune Do. Hey, buddy.
What's up, guys?
So we want to get your answer. We want to get it right. I think we have an answer, but I'm going to move you to the middle here. I want to hear your questions enough so we can get that right answer.
Sure. Yeah. So somebody, okay, good modern Arnis, I think I defined that well enough. Somebody who can represent the system, considering that from what I know, based on mostly listening to you guys talk, is that they're a really strong element of modern Arnis is the ability for students to discover the art within the art, or their interpretation or expression of the art based on something, a curriculum, Professor Remy's teachings.
Oh no, we that's bullshit.
No,
we've already talked about the art within your art is a is just people picking and choosing what they want versus learning the system.
Okay, so
you had an original art that now you're adding some Arnis experience into to now you have.
So
the
is
art
modern
within
Arnis complete? Did Professor Remy ever have a complete syllabus of what modern Arnis is?
Remy had a complete art when he came to from the Philippines to the United States, but it kept evolving. And what happened is a martial art magazine did an article said Arnis, the art within your art. So it became a marketing thing. So the whole art within your art was really a cross certification program, but he taught a full-blown system. I myself is a product of that. I came from a full-time martial arts school called the Filipino Karate Academy, which was Remy's marketing in the Philippines for that. So
there's a finality to the system, right? There's a like a checklist, let's call it.
It's a lot deeper than people think. It's not a graduate course where, it's not like Balintwalk where here's this and you're done.
Right.
There's a lot more to it.
But look, like Pikiti Tertia is a vast system, but Pikiti Tertia International has a very definitive list of requirements for people to rank up until
the World Modern Arnis Alliance.
We have our own, but also Remy had some certain expectations for black, and those were generally common.
Okay.
But it also depended on what your previous training and skills were. So.
Most people didn't commit to the art. Remy allowed for cross play, and he would, when it came to rank, going from one system to another, there were some martial credits that would come with you. So he was moving towards more and more people doing the art as a standalone program, but very few people actually came up with that mindset. But Remy had that art, but a lot of people never committed to it because their other arts were working for them financially with their schools and stuff of that nature. Why would they turn their back on a lucrative Taekwondo school or a karate school and turn into an Arnis school overnight? I mean, Inasano's had people do that, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's done that, but there wasn't this big hook for Filipino martial arts like the UFC that would help facilitate this, or the movies. So there is a full-blown system. Ty and I both do it. And
so going back to that question, though, going back to that, because I can't stay for very long, so I want to make sure that I can clarify the question well enough. So would an understanding of that complete system be a necessity for you guys to even label a modern Arnis group as being good? Or is the explorative discovery is which holds more weight, the completion of this syllabus or the spirit of modern Arnis as far as what constitutes good? Like, can I have 70% of the syllabus, but then we're a really strong fighting group? Would that be enough for you guys to go, okay, that's good. That's a good modern Arnis group? Or would you require 100% of both, really? An understanding of this?
Ideally that. I mean, when you're asking the question, the person that we were going to say off the bat, but want to make sure we got it right, Craig Mason. He is a second-gen black belt. He's through me. He does the art as a standalone program. The only modern Arnis black belt, to our knowledge, ever to become a full-fledged dog brother. And he works the material all the time. So we're a conceptual art, but we use specific techniques to teach those concepts.
So Yeah, I like Craig Mason a lot, but he wouldn't be part of the question that I'm asking because he really has a direct tie to Remy by way of you. Right?
So
That's a direct. I would consider
so
that
then
a
his
direct.
students, I mean, his students now,
His students. You're right. If his students started a
and
Modern Arnis group, and they broke off from Craig, right? Do they have the ingredients to become a good Modern Arnis group?
Good. Yeah.
it all depends on
What they do.
how much of their training
Right.
they've done.
Right,
But I
but
wanted-
they have the ingredient. They have the potential to.
Potentially.
Okay.
Yep.
So that answers my question.
Yeah.
It's possible.
If here's what I would say is, if you studied with us, the World Modern Arnis Alliance, with our curriculum and the support mechanisms we have for our, because we now have third generation black belts teaching out there.
Right.
So if with all the stuff that we've done, if people decide to split off, and you'd have that potential. If you came up the art within your art, I would say no. Because the thing is, there's this mindset that it could be blended with anything willy-nilly, and it's not Remy's system. And we're trying to promote Remy's system as much as, I mean, and for me, it's about propagating the art to keep it going generations afterwards.
Okay.
With the core being what Remy did. But I think there's a weird thing with that might help with this too, is there's two ways to take the idea of the phrase "make it your own." So do you make it your own because you work it and you own it, right? So you make it something that you own, and then it works for you because it's right for you, but it's still the material that you worked so dang hard to make yourself own it. Or do you just add things willy-nilly and make it your own because I'm gonna adjust it and be creative? At some point, I think, one is more what I would want to prefer, which is the former. But there's probably a spectrum there. But I know that some people go way far the latter.
Can you guys break it down for me? Like, let's say hypothetically, I wanted to be recognized by credible people like yourselves. I don't want rank or anything, but to go, yes, Paulo can exhibit and has an understanding of Modern Arnis. What would I, broadly speaking, need to be able to demonstrate to you guys that I am capable of doing?
Okay.
Flow through Sinawali.
The angles of attack, the corresponding blocks, the methodologies of blocking and passing. So you do the striking styles, which are the follow-ups, such as the abanicos, the ocho ocho, bandia banda rampida, the palis, which is the passing system, which is actually probably the core family system.
Okay.
Modern Arnis tappy, which was a simplified version of Balintwalk. You would do the Sinwali based one first off a single Sinwali with butting, then the advanced one, which is actually the fundamentals, the ABC or the Sagitas of Balintwalk. Mm-hmm. You would do all the locks and controls. You'd make sure you have all the punching and kicking, the Panatukan elements of that. Disarms, counter disarms.
Could I pass this test without knowing the specifics, but knowing how to adapt to whatever you throw at me?
No.
Can you go, hey, let's do tappy?
I wouldn't do it at all. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I did a test in I did a test in Sweden, and I said, all right, show me disarms. Show me what you got. And they went off. I go, stop. This is not a competency test. This is a curriculum test. Stop doing the Anayan and start doing the modern.
Gotcha.
If you want, if you're looking for a board, now here's the thing. If you're not you, but if someone is looking for a board to have them do an FMA competency test, that's a whole nother animal. I mean, listen, I could have a black belt in probably 30 different Filipino martial arts based on the fundamentals that Remy taught me. I haven't gone to a seminar that I couldn't teach just as good as the teacher was teaching at, if not better at times, with the exception of all morning, and that's seal out anyways. That's a different story. I'm sometimes explaining to the participants better than the teachers are doing. That doesn't make me an expert in their art, and I shouldn't get certification for it. What it means is I'm the freaking Datu, and I'm sharing my wealth and helping everyone get through the class together with us. So, but I shouldn't be rewarded if I could be in a Pikiti Tertia class and help all the people there do bikini better because I'm a better instructor than they are and have better knowledge of martial arts, I shouldn't get ranked for that or for any other system for that matter. Because we're not doing a proficiency exam. If I'm going to give a black belt, so I've got a black belt in a couple different things here. I passed the goddamn test. The only one I got was Dikiti Tertia through Nene Tortal. And everything else, I started as a white belt and I worked my way up and I learned the whole system. And so I'm an instructor under Ted Buat and Balintawak. I've been doing it for a couple of decades now. I represent the art well because I know the art. It's not just we just blessed you, and now no, that's a bullshit thing because we see those all the time. Now, if someone want to do a competency test just for FMA guys, which actually isn't a bad idea, hey, can you do this? The Ultimate Black Belt Challenge someone did before, and they did a test like that. We had to spar 1,000 rounds. You had to do this. You had to do community service and do all this other stuff. There could be a cool thing for that, but that's not propagating the art. That's evolving the people as martial artists or as combatants or whatever, not necessarily propagating the art. So if I'm going to give you a rank in modern, you need to know modern.
Guys.
No, I couldn't hear you because
FMA is all the same anyway.
Yeah, well, modern eats the mother art, so whatever,
So many similarities.
Arnis, not Kali.
I love training other FMA because I see the similarities and the differences, and they're both informative. It's wonderful. But I see that in almost any art. It's no different, right? I see that in my Kung Fu guys. I see that in my karate brethren who I don't do karate, but I love training with them for these insights.
Is this stuff public? Is the syllabus? Is the checklist? Is your Modern Arnis checklist? Can I look at it on a website and go?
No, but I can send you a PDF.
I would love to.
Yeah. I can send you a PDF.
Not just for me because we're friends and we're awesome.
I think some of the other groups have their.
Listen, people ask for my curriculum all the time. I share it. It's just a bunch of words on a piece of paper. Yeah, I mean, but remember, you know what the most? Okay, and we do a belting system. But what do you think the most important 3 belts are?
A white belt.
Exactly, the first 3.
Yeah,
because everyone goes looking for what's your black belt curriculum. It's the white belt curriculum because listen, all your advanced material is just sophisticated basics.
Yeah, no, that's the more I dive deep into learning the actual curriculum, not just the PTTA, but I have an understanding of the PTI and the others, iKali. I'm like, it really just because in the advanced programs, they are just either layering or sequencing fundamentals in order of increasing difficulty and sophistication. But it's all the same. Like what I'm gravitating to now is this whole ecological dynamics theory of learning and coaching. And I've ran some tests. I made somebody with no FMA experience whatsoever do a pretty rapid and complex knife flow drill with tapping and traps and counter traps and termination tactics, just based on limited objectives and constraints.
You necked the problem in, and then you drilled it and focused it. Yep.
Yeah, and I'll even share the specifics. Like partner 1 would have 2 objectives, which is deliver an initial attack and counter trap. Partner 2 would be an initial stop and a redirection. So partner 1 would deliver a strike. They would offer an initial stop and redirect, and then I would counter trap the redirection.
Cool.
And that is free flowing infinitely. Like that's kind of what we did. Datu in my garage. It was all that.
Yeah.
It was, except because we both had knives, we had that objective, that dual objective of providing, initial strikes, initial stops, redirections, and counter traps. And it looks beautiful. But it's not, like you said, it's not propagating the art. Cool. Maybe if I get that PDF, I will.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for your time. I gotta run. I appreciate it.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Should have said ingat ka lang.
All right, so Bob Smith, this is from Rich Parsons.
Oh yeah,
Kurt Cornwell is in Ferndale. So
Kurt Cornwell.
Cornwell.
Oh, okay.
Cornwell. Yeah, so he's there. He's a JKD. He's got some FMA, and then Rich is going to be down there too, doing some stuff.
Nice.
Eric,
Nice.
who I just sent him a lead, and the guy confirmed me today. Great. I'm glad you
Awesome.
like this.
Awesome.
So I mean, Paulo had, you know what, and that was great. I loved it because I thought I had to figured out where he was going with certain things. Could I get ranked in this? No, you can't, because that's just a proficiency thing, which has nothing to do with curriculum. And sometimes we get confused with the two.
Well, you a lot of times you want the curriculum to give you proficiency, but if you're passing along an art or even a science, a study of something, there are certain materials that have to be part of that.
And
that's what I think.
We were like, okay, what's going on? And we had a good conversation.
Yep.
Boom, done. And I think I love having Paulo on.
Well, he's good because he's not afraid to ask questions that maybe other people might not want to ask, and he's not mean about it. Here's a blunt question. I'm trying to figure it out. Help me out here. And then we have a discussion, which is perfect.
Perfect. No harm, no foul, no egos are bruised.
Yep.
You know. So yeah, I think also yeah, I think so we'll get back into this real quick. I don't think there's really much more to say.
Mm-hmm.
We were a team working with Remy.
Yep. That's one of the reasons that I had to go hermit after a while, because after Remy passed, that did not exist anymore.
Teamwork was gone.
You know? It was too frustrating, and I had to say, okay, you guys fight over there. I'm going to go over here and teach and train and do whatever, and I'll come, check you out later. But I didn't never stop.
I will say this: there were some problems. I'm going to give you a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You send your students to see Remy. You can't make it.
Mm-hmm.
You get an update, comes back through them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not the way Remy taught me. I'm going to do it the way Remy taught me.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of that. But I don't think it was out of malice.
Right.
Usually it was formed.
I doubt it. Yeah. It's just people, if they didn't see it, it's kind of like show me, don't tell me, or I didn't see that, so I don't know exactly where you're coming from. So, it's a built-in kind of reaction. On the other hand, I was spoiled, right? Because when Eric was out for a few years, I was able to come back and give him back a lot of the stuff that had been developed since he wasn't as active. And he asked me to do that, and I offered, because here I can help my starter instructor and pay back. It was beautiful.
Well,
I have those recorded too.
Yeah, I think we were a good team.
Yeah.
I
remember even Remy said, hey, there's another branch of the chapter or whatever it was. I'm not sure exactly what Mazik stuff was, but Remy said, hey, you will join them and support them. And we're like, okay, yeah, sure, Remy. I mean, we were all there for each other, at least what I saw. But I wasn't, I didn't know everybody at the time. And so, I got to feel things probably more on the newer side of students and not any baggage. But, and also everybody knew and loved Eric, my starter instructor, before he passed me up to Remy. So I already had a good foot in with lots of folks, and I tried to keep that going forever. And Rich is a great example of someone who's been able to do that as well, probably even better. I don't know if he's still on. But my whole idea was to support Remy's art. And so everybody who's doing it is family. And that's why I tried to support as many groups as I could.
Whether they do it part-time or full-time,
yep.
We're all still part of the same family.
Yep.
It's just that is where we butt heads, because there's this false impression of what the art is. And Paulo had no clue until we talked about it. There was a full system. I go, yes, there was a full system. I mean, and yep. there was no art within the art. That was a marketing thing, and it was a cross-ranking program.
Right. I mean, he was going to teach you all the things that he was going to teach you. If you took it as an add-on for what you're doing, he's like, okay, you can do that.
I'll give you the most tangible one that people, it's a no-brainer for people to wrap their head around.
Mhm.
Some people sat out of the form sessions.
Right.
Some people had no interest in doing forms, so they didn't do it.
Right.
Some people had no interest in wrist locks. They sat out of those sessions. All right. So you would have people that would pick and choose what they wanted to learn.
Right. Well,
You know?
and then sometimes, in my mind, it's funny people get twisted about forms. They think it was just for form's sake, but actually, Remy used it as a great vehicle to teach application and understanding of movement. Using it for something, and that was good.
Rich says, "Hey, Ty, I'm still
He was
there."
one of the best applications instructors I've ever run across.
Yeah. And here we go. How many kicks does the standalone Arnis have? Okay, I'm going to go through my list.
Right. I'm going through mine.
Front and back,
Right.
side.
Right.
Okay. Then there was the
Stomp.
stomp.
Right.
There was the knees. We
Yep.
did at least the front straight knees.
I don't
Now-
remember a roundhouse in there.
Right. But then,
Oh,
okay. Well, we can talk about that.
that-
Actually, if you look at the Modern Arnis Forms project, I think I have 3 of the stick forms out there.
yeah,
It's on my
they're pretty.
playlist.
They're more like
They're short.
shadow play. They're pretty
Really
short.
It's
Yep.
like a warm up.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially one of
So
them.
I mean, okay. So if we're talking what I teach, listen. Okay. Remy hit me with a roundhouse kick.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all right. So what I teach my people, what I require my people: front, back, side, round, hook, oblique, which is a like a soccer style kick,
Mhm.
and then I do the knees. Now today we had a fun day of movement. So on my little kids, I teach them spinning kicks and stuff like that, aerials, because I want to build up skill level. And with the adults today, I had people. I did okay. Let's do we did inward and outward crescent,
Mhm.
and I popped it with a crescent. They're like, "Where the hell did that come from?" I'm like, "Stop it! Who teaches you guys?"
Right.
And then I did spinning crescent. And they're like, "Where the hell did that come from?" Really? And then I did hop spinning crescent. And they're like, "What?" And so Shia was in the room. I go, "Have you seen Shia do all this shit?" I go, "Yeah." "Where do you think she gets this stuff from? Do you think she looks on YouTube?" And they're all looking at me. "Does she?" I'm like, "You guys are like, I'm gonna stab you guys. I'm gonna stab you hard."
Right.
But I whipped off a really solid. Well, here's the thing too. Double clappers. The clapper paddles.
Mhm.
Bang. They have enough mass to it.
Right.
They're
designed for that. So he said, yeah, he'd love to learn a couple of forms. He's in love with FMA forms these days.
Okay.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, then you do them all together. It makes one decent sized form.
Yeah. Yeah.
But look at my
the
forms
stick.
because I've put some embellishments in it that actually work other techniques in the art, and we
But-
do the proper footwork.
And I was going to say, all the embellishments that I'm aware of or thinking of right now were all stuff that Remy showed and did. So it's nothing.
Double action abanico,
Right. Yep.
Rumpita, or if you do the
Yep.
The floretes, which is our herrada, and then fixing the footwork so we didn't cut ourselves. Because the original system, well, I don't know what the original system was, but Remy witnessed his father teaching the gorillas, and they weren't using hunks of rattan.
Right.
So
And it didn't match how he normally taught movements, so the
Yeah.
stepping. So I'm totally on board with the adjusted stepping because of that. Because I remember Remy moving, so you didn't have to say it twice for me.
if you looked at Remy's fundamentals, the forms didn't follow them. I could show you. We're not going to get into it. But
Yep.
everyone that I've shown the forms to and why I've done the change, they understand completely.
Right.
Because
Now they still might want to do it the way they learned it. I get it, but
yeah,
they understood it.
yeah, because it follows these rules that Remy taught us.
Yep.
The roundhouse kick is a sign of affection. Well, it was a sign of something. He just like kicking me. But I mean, listen. I mean, okay. You look at most styles: front, side, back.
Right.
I mean, that's if you look at any and Remy had a karate influence,
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter where it came from, for the record. It matters that Remy put it in the system. Right. Although I do Sikran, which was dates back to the 1500s. And the first class of Sikran I got literally was from Remy, because when I did my official sign up and put the uniform on, it was the exact same class like a decade and a half later.
Nice.
Maybe 2 decades later. Remy, how do I get better at kicking? Well, you go like this. You know, they go like this. And I'm like, damn it.
I think you just said a really big thing there, which is, you know, it doesn't matter where it came from. It's that Remy put it in his system. And I think that you and I, the idea is that we want to get the most out of what Remy was trying to share. Full stop. That's what we want to get the most out of, what Remy was trying to share and what he did share. I'm taking the liberty of speaking for you, but that's my take on why we mesh on what we're doing.
Yeah, that's right. Demo round.
That's right. Hey, soccer ball. I mean, Tim, come here. Let me kick you. Right.
Yeah, that was.
Yep.
Yeah. Listen, Remy had an ingenious way of showing how you can enhance another system, but that wasn't his system. That was the benefit of learning his system. And if you learned his body of work, you could share those same things with others. Mm-hmm. But when you blend it with something else and just think you can willy-nilly go with things, you miss the point. Because it's not about blending all these things with what Remy did. It's blending Remy's stuff with other people's things and making them better for the art within your art concept. But really what the bottom line was, he showed us all that there was a standalone program and only a handful of people stood up and decided to actually learn it.
Give it its due. Yeah. Do the work.
He showed us all the time.
Right.
But when you sat down for forms, locks, and controls, fill in the blanks, and chose not to participate in certain aspects of the art, you just by default said you weren't learning the entire art.
I would get enough from even just 2 camps a year plus the seminars. I would have more than enough stuff to work on throughout the rest of the year with my students and myself because of how much he showed if you took it that seriously.
So if there's people out there that felt fragmented, I basically think you got to look at the source and ask the question, how many of them made the sacrifice to be part of the community? Because a lot of people didn't make those sacrifices. So there was a time, there's some politics in Buffalo, go figure. And I got sick of it. I really, really got sick of it because it came down to what's in it for me. I'm like, oh my God, we're working together to make it better for all of us. And I was like, fine, you know what? And so things went sideways. I go, we're not bringing Remy in anymore. Now, I didn't make this announcement to anybody. I just said, I'm done. I am not bringing him in. These people got it way too. I mean, we had 13 different Modern Arnis groups in Buffalo. And I was the one that was always traveling to see Remy. And then once I came home, they'd all come up to my doors to find out what I learned. And I should have just did a seminar to pay for the weekend I went away so then I could do more and bring more material back.
Yep.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you would have done that, that would have supported it. And then it would be worth doing that way.
Yeah, it would have been worth doing that way. Mm-hmm. But finally I said, screw it. I'm done. I'm done. We're not bringing Remy in. If these ass clowns want to see Remy, have them do what I do. Get off their damn ass and go see Remy.
Him. Go see him.
And they didn't.
Yep.
My people did. Dan Carr did. Mm-hmm. He'd go to the camp, Michigan camp. We got him to come to Michigan camp. Then once I got him going, couldn't get him to stop, which is great. Nice. But the thing here is the rest of them stopped seeing him. And then people fell off, and then I brought him in years later. And we had the biggest support we've ever had. Mm-hmm. And the thing here is that, but I was done because I wanted Remy to see who really supported him and who were just fair weather friends that would only go see. Because here's the thing. It's about scale. I saw Remy a lot. What does that mean?
A lot. What is a lot? Yeah.
How many times? Okay. What do you think your number is? We know mine's 180.
Right. We counted I think the last I counted, it was like 18 camps and I think around 30-ish seminars. And I know the hours. I do have the hours because it's right here on this other sheet that we talked about other thing. It was a total of only 500, 600 Remy pure hours,
Okay.
plus whatever else I taught and, did other things. So that's over the 8 years that I had with him personally.
Okay. There we go.
And I think you were at like 4,000 or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh, well, I mean, we figured 30 camps was like 26 hours.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at these sheets, but no, I can't read.
So that's I think we said like 1,500 hours.
Oh, yes. 50, yeah. Yep. It was this 4,000 once you did your self-development training as well.
Yeah. So, I mean.
So doing your work. Yeah.
Doing my work. You're right. Yep. So, so 1,500 hours. Okay. I saw him for 15 years. It's basically saying I saw him 1 hour a week for 15 years.
Right. It's almost like you were a regular-ish student.
Like a regular. And that's only the ones I count.
Right.
That's not all the time on the side. That's not privates and stuff like that.
Right.
And also when people say that they've done privates, they exaggerate that number.
I like your term.
Maybe stolen moments.
Stolen moments. Well, or gifted moments, whichever.
Yeah.
It was Remy would reach out and give you something, and if you're smart, you would take it. So most people took it, even the people that were art within your art. I remember I had a whole day in Randy Shea's yard with Remy. That was a great private, but it was because he wanted to train Randy. I got invited. Let's see. Yeah, we ask this question all the time, Kurt. What will Modern Arnis become when all the original students of GM Remy have moved on? Well, we're trying to make sure that we do our part to pass it on. We're looking for that next generation, and it's not me and the guys. It's the next one after that.
We are 2 generations deep with us.
Yep.
Ass clowns make terrible balloon animals, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we've worked. There's a lot of things I've been doing. If you see my social media stuff, a lot of that is to get exposure to the art, which has been blowing up. We're probably got like 13 million views now.
Jeez. Amazing.
Not in this month.
Right, but total since the program started.
Yeah, well, and I'm not up to date on some stuff like right now. As of today's numbers, this month, almost 1.7 million views for the month. So this is a little weak. Although today was part 2
of the jiu-jitsu one. Yeah,
why FMA is better than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the zombie apocalypse.
Nice. I didn't see that one yet, but I saw the one the other day.
Well, that's the one today that came out. It was the zombie apocalypse one, but we did the Muay Thai one. That was pretty strong. I've got one. Actually, I'm trying to. So once again, I work with a company, and they want me to be, like that. So I'm trying to make the more. I think the next time I do one, it's going to be, how would I use FMA to defeat these other systems? Like, what would be my approach?
Give them a bunch of lumpia until they get fat, and then beat them with a
Well, I mean, like, Taekwondo, I would just step on their feet. So anyways, I'm here all day. BJJ guys are easy. You just have to bring a really big bag of tacks and
I think people are now taking it better that these are, pot stirrer things. They're to stir up interest and just get some awareness and have some fun. It's not a serious poke at people.
I wish I could say I agree with you on that.
So it hasn't gotten better. Okay.
Oh, well, so like today so it's up to 10,000 views already. It dropped at 5 o'clock. So,
okay.
10,000 views in 5.5 hours.
That's because you already riled the BJJ guys up on the first round.
Okay, here we go. Let me see what he said. Here's what I got. If he this is Jason. So this is Jason Arnold, my fan, versus Jason Arnold, my friend. 2 different people. If he truly thinks he should fight one of the Gracie family's black belts or red belts around his age as soon as possible, he can talk all he wants, proving his idea somewhere else. Wait a minute. What's this have to do with the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah.
There you go. But they go, then Dan Donzella says, Jason Arnold, you're thinking sport against a blade art, no contest. We love Dan. Dan's the man. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is for real combat, also self-defense. Also, Hartman is a joke. I'm like, okay, whatever. But you know what? I'm still making his ass clown look at my videos.
It's a fan.
You know, I said, you know, like, okay, so we've have a whole bunch of people making comments. And like, okay, guess what? If you're watching my videos, I'm owning real estate in your brain rent free. You're still my fan.
And you're adding to your count.
I'm adding to that count. Own the TikTok world. Actually, it's more.
There you go. I think it's getting overall good press and good exposure, and that's what it's trying to do. So,
well, you know, listen, we're having a little fun.
Yep.
You know, it's okay. Listen, it's serious martial arts talk with a little Master Ken flair.
There you go.
No one's complaining about Master Ken doing it.
No.
Well, they probably are, but you know.
Why Master Ken's art is bullshit.
I was so disappointed when Master Ken did the Filipino martial art one. He like took the stick. He's like, I'm like, that's the best you got? That's all you. I'm like, dude, come on, Matt, step up.
Yep. Yeah.
Step up.
Still need to meet him. I met who was the guy, the character? His main.
The actual instructor.
Yeah. Great guy, and the school was just really, really good. It was a really good. I'm glad I dropped by.
It's funny because when I was talking to Ken, or I'm not Ken, I'm sorry,
Matt. Yep.
We were at the Maya. It was the last. No, it wasn't. It was the second last Maya trade show. And we're walking by. Hey, what's going on? I go, yeah, I'll give you a name blast in the past. I go, what? I go, Martial Talk. And he looks at me because he was an old guy in Martial Talk. I go,
right.
I was the co-founder. What? Renegade. Oh my God. And we start completely out of character.
Nice.
And then we're talking. And then people start rolling up. I'm like, hey, you got to do your job. Quick photo. Yeah. Okay, good. And then we went on.
Yeah.
But,
and I know those shows that they used to do.
There.
That's right.
And then Master Ken is the man in person. You know,
I think he's doing another movie now. I saw the first movie; it was pretty good.
Yeah, which one was that? The one was a cop.
No, it was it was. I can't remember the name.
Oh, the Kung Fu one.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Yep.
Like the
movie. There was a whole movie. It wasn't as Master Ken, but Matt Page was starring in a.
Oh well, there's one where he's as like a sheriff and he gets shot at the beginning or something like that. Or
no,
Paper Tigers was a good
Paper
one.
Tigers, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh, he played the Kung Fu guy, and they're like,
yeah, exactly.
you know you're white, right?
Right.
And everyone's jumping on Paper Tigers. That was actually a very good movie.
Yep.
And I liked his role, although he's like jacked much. Oh.
What's funny, he said the series, of course, was the one that he started out with. This was a lot of work, and I can only imagine.
So, yeah, we digress. So, listen.
Imagine.
I think with the last thing we started talking about is perspective, scale. Mm-hmm. You know, do you have a lot of students? Oh, I have a lot of students. I have, Timmy, how many students do you have? I'm down, man. It's summer. It's like 80 people. 80. We're lucky to have 8 people. You know, it's scale. But then it's like, what's your goal?
Right.
I saw Remy a lot. What does that mean? Saw him every time he came to Buffalo. Okay. And, every time he's coming to Buffalo. Great. Okay. So what, like 10, 15? Yeah. Tim, how many times you see him? 180. What? 180. What? 180. Oh.
Right.
You know, 30 camps alone.
Right.
So when I see people, you know, and like I said, if you look at someone like, okay, so the Florida crew, you know, they just weren't around. And, I saw Bram. He came to a seminar hosted for Remy, and he showed up at the end of a seminar at Roland Rivera's and David Nung's, and he showed me the paperwork for it. But just a drive by, showed me the plans to one of his knives he was working on. Oh, that's really cool. I even think he was at the Orlando camp that Bruce hosted. If you were if you had no, once again, I mean, and I don't blame people who made the choice if they decided that family was more important. But then you got to understand, if you didn't travel, then how would you know what's going on? Oh, I traveled. Well, give me the number. Give me the thing,
Yeah, I mean, a lot is easy and it sounds impressive, but what do you mean? You should just throw numbers on things. When we asked that question, right?
Well, no one wants to answer that question.
Right. We did.
So you sat there and said how much you did in Texas. It's a good number. I'm going to give you some names, and you tell me if these names sound like people who would have seen Remy a lot in addition to myself. I'm going to give you the top names for quantity of seminars outside of me and my students. Okay. Chuck.
Followed around for a while, and he came up starting at the same time I did.
You saw him down in Texas a bunch of times, right?
Plus he did some other ones, yeah.
Specifically the camps.
Sure. Well, I know he did some other camps, but I'm not sure which ones, except for Michigan, plus the Texas ones. Most of
Kenny.
them. Again, about half the Texas ones, so that's a big chunk.
And maybe Jim Lattis.
Yeah,
he didn't travel as much.
No, not as much.
And Jeff Delaney.
And Jeff was at almost every Texas thing also.
Okay.
Not every, but almost.
No, and he started later too.
Right.
So they're still far beneath the numbers. But I think of those four names. Okay. The person who would have been the closest to the quantity of seminars that I attended would have been Chuck. Georgia camp. He was at least one of the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania camps. I know he went out to, I don't know if Dan was hosting the camp or one of the camps out there. And when he came back, I'm never doing forums again because they argued about forums the whole time, blah, blah, blah. I mean,
Chuck definitely made sacrifices to go places and follow Remy.
He did.
Yep.
Jim Lattis made financially a lot of sacrifices. Like I was told he was like 5 figures in debt because of the stuff he was doing.
Wow.
Plus he was legally blind. So it added to the travel expenses.
Yep.
But I look at these guys, and these guys, they made sacrifices to see Remy. So when I say I'm not the only one to do it, but I mean, then you look at people like Dieter that only saw Remy like 3 times.
He put a number though, luckily. What did he say? 50 hours at Remy?
50 hours. So that was 1 seminar and 2 camps, maybe 3.
Yeah, I'm not sure what those details, but I remember the number.
So he went to a seminar that Remy went to in Germany. And then Gabriel hosted a camp. He hosted a camp. And then Remy was sick. So I think he attended 1 camp in the States. I could be wrong.
He was at a seminar with wait. When did I meet? I think I met Dieter not with Remy. So Dieter was doing a thing at El Garza's.
Okay.
And I think it was just that. I don't think Remy was there. So it was just Dieter teaching. And so we supported that. And here's our friend, nice guy that people said, hey, check him out. And I could. But yeah, that wasn't with Remy. I was thinking it was. So
Now, if you want to know about Ernesto's side, he'd be a person I would talk to because you spent a lot of time with Ernesto.
Sure. Yep.
But when we start talking about stuff about Remy and Modern specifically, I mean, these are the people I would talk to because they were around. Like I said, Brian, I saw him like 3 or 5 times, probably about 5 times, And of course, when he was training, for most of that time that I would have seen him, he was still a student of Lowry, who was the head of the group. So, and he was a correctional officer. I'm married to a correctional officer. He had family commitments and stuff of that nature. He couldn't. I mean, I was single. I gave up a lot of stuff so I could do this. That was my choice.
No, it's funny. I lament the time that I didn't get with Remy, or some areas I didn't get to go with. But on the other hand, if I weren't in Texas and I was a grad student, I would have only been able to see him maybe once a year. So I lucked out. So I should be happy, even though we all wish we had more time with him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the thing, so when we talk about stuff, we got to put things in scale, and that's why when Dean was saying about getting us all together, that would be a good idea, because then we could easily go, okay, is that really the deal, or is that your perception of things? How many times did you actually do this? How many times did this actually happen? How many times did this happen? Because the facts are the facts.
Yep.
If we get them wrong, we have to correct them. But I think things became fragmented after Remy died. And a good part of that was because there was no infrastructure to keep us together, because we didn't have the internet functioning the way it is today.
That, and we didn't do the will.
You went there, not me.
That's true.
Okay, I did not go there. But since you opened the door, yes. It became fractionalized, which, by the way, you got to look at all the masters of Tappy Tappy. Randy Shea, Chuck Goss, Ken Smith, Jim Lattis, Brian Zawolinsky, Kenny Smith.
Gabby. Oh, you already said Kenny, but Gabby Roloff.
All right, Randy.
Yeah. Yep,
Randy, Chuck, Ken.
Yep.
Jeff. I was forgetting Jeff.
Right.
None of them chose to execute the will.
Right.
It's
7 of them. Yeah.
7 of them as a group, where we're at, in my opinion, they were exclusive, not inclusive. And with people talking about events that are inclusive, to be inclusive, you need to invite everybody, not just your friends.
Yep.
I have an open door policy. There's people I do not want in my school anymore. There's a difference. But if people were to reach out to me, there's probably a couple people that after a dialogue would be allowed to come into school. But, one of which insulted Janice, and that'll never go.
Right.
And when I called on it, blew it off as a joke. Well, you know what? You're the joke. So we don't talk about those things. So there are a couple people that just have crossed the line that can never come back. But the thing here is, I have yet to turn anyone away from one of my camps. And once again, we had the reunion camp, which started all this stuff in the first place. Because had we not done the reunion camp, we wouldn't have had the East, the best of the West, the best of the East,
right.
The East meets West. Brian wouldn't be doing his event. Nobody would be doing on that event had we not done the reunion camp.
On that first one, which unfortunately I missed, but I know that you went out of your way to make sure that people felt invited or re-invited when the dates changed, which some people thought was weird, but I think is the way you should do it if you're trying to be inclusive.
I remember having the conversation with one of the camp instructors, and Jeff Delaney told me that he couldn't make the date. He had a schedule conflict. Okay. And I was trying to get Ed Parker Jr. to be part of the event because he was actually the one that inspired it for the homecoming camp for Kempo. It turns out he couldn't make it. Okay, whatever. So I asked everyone if we could change the week. And everyone said, sure. So then I reached back out to Jeff, and the one instructor was like, well, why would you bother? Well, because he said he couldn't make it because of a schedule conflict. Well, he said no. Because of a schedule conflict.
Right.
Well, you shouldn't have done it. I'm like, listen. And this is one of the ass clowns out there causing trouble these days. Here's the deal. If I told you I can't make it because you planned it on this day, I'm being honest with you. And whether or not I am or aren't, you need to give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm telling the truth. Mm-hmm. So if you change the date, and that was the only thing that I said that was keeping me from being there, then it's your responsibility to tell me what the new date is. Because then I can come back and say, even if I had no intention on going, you see these motherfuckers, you know what they did? They said that this was the date. I said I couldn't do it unless they changed the date. They changed the date and they never came back and told me. I wanted to, I crossed the T's and dot all the I's. Some people wanted to be treated special and they withdrew from the event. That's fine. Kelly Warden got in a motorcycle accident a week prior and was still trying to make it out. We made it work with the people we had. It was a blast, and it led into other things that would have never happened had we not had that camp. How quickly people forget things.
Well, and I believe there was fair pay for everybody and some more than they've ever seen.
At that time, I would be willing to bet you that all but possibly one instructor had never seen pay like that before.
That's inclusive and supportable, right? That's a model that can, if anybody wants, could easily keep going. But
seven instructors, 3 special guests, hotel rooms, meals, and payment. And the money wasn't Remy money, but it wasn't that far behind either.
No, that's more than fair.
But
and I think people should know that, because to me that was a big deal, and that's why I was actually unhappy that I missed it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't out of being a hermit yet.
And of course, people don't want to reciprocate because,
or they don't even want to remember all the details of it. They just say the event. They don't say anything else.
Well, yeah, because they give me too much props.
Right. It's
because people are trying to cancel culture. But I mean, it's kind of hard because I'm looking at my numbers right now. I looked at 3 videos that they put out collectively to promote some stuff, and it's less than 1,000. I do that in an hour.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It's too bad we couldn't unite under a person. I don't even care who it is, as long as there would be another person that could make it worthwhile, like we had with Remy, and make it happen.
No one wants it.
No one.
Because if they can't be the guy.
Right.
Well, that's pretty big words, Tim. Hey, I put myself underneath Ted Buick for Balintawak. I put myself underneath Mark DeLeon for my Kuntao and my Sikran, which puts me underneath Lenata and Geronimo. Jerry DeSanto is my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor, which puts me underneath Helio Soneca. I've constantly put myself in line with somebody else. I'm going to be taking CLOT from members of our organization, Mike and May Williams, which will put us under the lineage of Uncle Bill. All right. I was a student of Dr. G, a good friend of Remy's in Bondo. Okay. I have no problem putting that white belt on.
Right.
As the saying goes, my saying is, who says once you go black, you can't go back?
We're all students always. And if you're not learning, like I said, you're dying. You're not learning. You have to always be learning. You're always a student. Otherwise you're getting worse.
So as we wrap this up, I will say one thing, and feel free to quote me on this. I would have followed somebody if they had all the things I had. I looked at Remy. I looked what he offered. No one was even close to doing that. And they didn't have the physical ability. They didn't have the depth of knowledge, because most of these guys are trained coming up anyways. They didn't have the teaching ability. And more importantly, didn't have the vision that he had. He was an all-in-one package. He wasn't the best at everything in the world. But at the end of the day, no one had that swagger. But no one had that package. But if someone did, I would have teamed up with them. No questions asked. I brought people in our organization, and they felt that they thought they were going to be the organization. Sorry. It's my group, my thing. All right. Now, I'm very simple about how things run. This is what we do. I don't tell you what to do in your school. You want rank through us? This is the way you got to do it. End of story. How you run your school is up to you. Who you have in your school is up to you.
Things have to have standards. Otherwise you got nothing.
So, at the end of the day, I would have been willing, but there was no one more qualified to take over than me at the time. And I'm not even saying that I was qualified.
You're just saying in terms of what you would be looking for, it wasn't there.
Right. And here's the thing. I stepped away from the organization. I resigned when they made the public announcement that Remy was gone, when he stepped down due to his medical conditions. He retired, so I resigned from the organization. The organization has nothing to do with the art.
Right.
I kept moving forward with the art.
Right. You're still committed to the art.
And as far as I'm concerned, if you look at things, I'm pretty sure that what's left of what Remy had is on life support. And the 7 of them, including the people who have left, all contributed to that, including Brian, who keeps forgetting about things and tries to distance himself from the things instead that were done. Well, no, that was you, bud. All the things you're complaining about, you were part of it, probably the worst offender. But the thing here is this, and do your own thing. I don't give a shit. I'm doing my own thing. Stay out of my way. Simple as that. You want to rewrite history? Do what you got to do. We're moving forward. We're talking the truth over here. And if we find out that we've got misinformation and someone can bring it to us with documentation of some sort, we're more than happy to recant what we said. But that's about it. We're not doing a show next week because it is Memorial Day weekend and everyone's got better things to do than to listen to 2 of us. You can do anything fun with your family?
I don't know yet. I haven't thought that far ahead. We're right in the middle of amazing stuff at work, so that's taking my brain cells.
I hear you. Well, I'm gonna do some local stuff. I will say June 1st, Metro Toronto area, Grandmaster Bobby Tabuado will be up there. I will be there on the day. I'll be getting there later in the day because I have to run stuff the night before. And then June 8th is my Balance Walk seminar. You can attend physically and virtually. The next part up, there are a lot of bits, and this session is going to be about the bits and pieces, the inserts that we put into things. And then I think I think this will be the last one we do of that series. And then July is our CLOT camp. And then I go to the Philippines, so that'll be interesting. And hopefully I can make it back for the seminar teaching over tarots with Grandmaster Riddell. I got to make some phone calls. There's some stuff happened that I have to put some fires out or attempt to. A whole bunch of schedule changes that makes things very difficult. I think I need a new lung too.
Sure, easily. Yep. So yeah, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks, right?
No clue what we're going to talk about, but then again, most days I don't have that clue anyways. So, if you got someone in the Modern Arnis or FMA industry that would be interested in being on the show, let us know. I've got an invite to a person. I'm waiting for him to get back to me. Check out some of the past shows. Brian Canado was the last one we had. Very good show. Very good show. Love to have him back on.
Yep.
And then Dean Franco wants to have a bunch of us on his show, possibly next week. Talk about how the camp went, the support structure we have with all that and stuff of that nature.
Nice.
And he's going to share things from his position because he came in as an outsider, and well, he told us he had a good time. So we'll see. See what he tells others.
There you go.
All right. So
on the show.
Yeah. So I'm gonna wrap it up unless you got something else there, brother.
Yep, I got nothing. Wait. Oh, also keep an eye out for the last weekend in June. The Delaware camp.
Yep, Delaware camp is the last week of June, I think. And then a couple other things going on there too. Let me see. The last 2 comments. Don't forget to invite me also.
That's right.
We did.
2 weeks. I don't know.
No. Here's the challenge. How early are you available on a Monday night? Because it's like the only night we're available.
Right. He's usually driving when our shows work.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I can. Okay. What's your Ty? What's your availability on Sundays? If we chose one,
I could do a Sunday instead. Yeah.
Dan, how's your Sundays? We can do a special episode on a Sunday.
Dan would be a good person to do that with, I think.
Okay, there we go. We'll make an exception for Dan.
There you go.
If that works for you, sir. Sundays are open. Okay.
right.
So I tell you what, we'll look at our schedule. We'll get that dialed in so I'm not coming back from something on a Sunday and I'm like, but then again, I mean, Ty can speak good for both of us. So, all right. Love it hanging out with both of you guys. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So there we go. Dan Medina is going to be our next guest, hopefully. We just got to look at the date and we're going to get through the holidays. So listen, everyone enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. And thanks for listening in. We know you could do other things.
Yep.
I think this is more therapeutic for us than I think. Well, people are watching. It's just, the right people are watching. All right. Well, listen, with no further ado, this is always a pleasure. This is Datu Tim.
BG Ty. Take care, everyone.
Stay safe and stay sane.